Hi, Karen Curry Parker here with your weekly Human Design Evolution Report. This is a really important and powerful time as we get ready to head into 2019. So I want to explore with you a couple of thoughts and concepts that I think are really important for you to understand to start 2019 from a really powerful place. First of all, we have been in a Mercury retrograde cycle that comes to a completion on Friday, which doesn't mean that the cycle's over. It just means, if you can imagine, the retrograde cycle, and this is true for any planet, a retrograde cycle is kind of a spiraling in until we get sort of to the nexus of the spiral and we take a breath and we say, okay, I've released everything. I've contemplated everything I need to release and contemplate. And then we begin the process of spiraling out. And in that process of spiraling out, we begin the process or the journey of integrating the new lessons that we've learned. This Mercury cycle has been teaching us about focus. It's been teaching us about patterns and habits. It's been teaching us about our relationship to source and our willingness to allow ourselves to be supported. And in a very mundane sense, it's been bringing us that lesson through the flow of money, which tends to be the archetype we collectively have chosen to demonstrate the energy of support and faith and connection to source on this planet. And it's been inviting us to look at the nature of our power. The journey we've been on with Mercury has been mirrored in a couple of other planetary positions. And in this week, it really is mirrored for us in the movement of the sun and even in the movement of the planet Jupiter. The sun started off this week in the gate 9, the gate of focus, moving into the gate 5, the gate of habits. On Tuesday, Jupiter moves from the energy of the 34 power into the energy of the 9 focus. Why is focus so important? Focus is important because it's through our focus that we create growth. Whatever you focus on creates expansion, whether it's a good focus or a bad focus. We know this from quantum physics. Perspective, or what you're paying attention to or what you're noticing, actually influences the movement of subatomic particles. Where you put your energy and attention creates energy flow, creates movement on an atomic level. And your perspective and what you focus on is vital in really looking at what are you creating in your life? Where are you putting your energy? And because it's married, starting on Wednesday with the sun moving into the gate 5, and as I said, when we spiral out of this Mercury cycle, we're going to go through this too. The gate 5 is the energy of patterns and habits. So we really have this opening on a planetary level between now and December 27th, and this energy is bopping through all kinds of different planets as we go through this cycle, that's really inviting us to explore what are the habits that we have on a consistent basis that are supporting our focus, that are supporting our being able to trust and grow in our faith and stay connected to source and feel supported, and that are supporting us ultimately in expressing the true nature of our inherent power, and we are all inherently powerful. I want to break this down a little bit because the most important piece that I really want you to walk away with today is an understanding of why habits and patterns are so important. We tend to bust into whatever the new year on New Year's Day with the idea of, I'm going to change all my patterns and habits. If you are a member of a gym, and you go every day, or you go consistently over the course of the year, in January and by January to mid-February, there's never an elliptical machine available. There's never a treadmill ready. All the newbies who decided on January 1 that today is the day, this is the year they started the gym, all the newbies start going to the gym for about 6 weeks until they drop off, right? Then we tend to beat ourselves up. I suck. I don't have willpower. Well, you don't. Most of us don't. And it's not about willpower. It's about discovering how to cultivate habits that are rooted in something bigger than willpower. Discovering how to cultivate patterns and habits that are connected to a bigger why, a bigger purpose, and a bigger meaning, which I'll talk about more in the next couple of weeks. But for all intents and purposes today, I just want to talk about habits and why they're important. As counterintuitive as it sounds, consistency creates growth. Let's go back to the gym. If you go to the gym once a month, you're not going to get anything except sore, right? You're not going to see the benefits of all the weights you lifted, of how much you ran on the track, or how many miles you spun on your bike. That one time a month thing doesn't create enough consistency for there to be a solid platform for growth and transformation. If we want to make change in our lives, if we want to grow and transform, we have to have a consistent practice that supports us in that transformation. You can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to change. And if you have a transformative experience, let's say something intense and cataclysmic and extreme happens to you that pushes you into transformation, you still can't sustain that transformation if you don't ultimately, in the end, anchor it in something consistent. So if you go through a spiritual cycle or some kind of a cycle of explosion and growth, and many of us have gone through that, where you've been sick or you've gotten burned out or something happened in your relationship or something happened with your money, and you really got the meaning on a deeper level of what that event was about. The transformation and the insights that you get don't take hold if you don't also ground that transformation into something new and consistent. We need both consistency and transformation, and those two have to dance together beautifully, and they do. It's from having consistency, having patterns and habits that support you in being aligned with spirit as source. And I'm not telling you what pattern or habit needs to be. It might be meditation, it might be journaling, it might be morning pages, it might be walking with your dog outside, it might be yoga, it might be taking a hot bath every day. It's different for each and every one of us, and each and every one of us will have a different pattern and habit. It doesn't even mean you have to do it every day at the same time. It just means you do have to have a practice. And practice, when we think about practice, inherently has built into it repetition and consistency, right? You can't practice your violin once every month and then expect to be ready to do the next major symphony on a stage if you haven't practiced consistently over time. We need consistency to set the stage or to create a baseline frequency of energy from which to launch into growth. And then when we go through that launch, whatever that is, that transformation, we then change or shift the baseline frequency in response. That is the nature of how we grow. We have huge leaps forward, quantum leaps, and then sometimes a leap back, maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but then we still have that 1 step forward. And that 1 step forward is rooted in consistently practicing whatever it is you learn from the transformative cycle. The reason why this is so important is that when we look ahead at the planetary energies of 2020, 2020 promises to bring us some pretty big cataclysmic cycles of transformation. There's change on the horizon. And we know this, and many of you know this and feel this and sense this, and many of you have known this and felt this and sensed this your whole life. We are, as a species, as humans on a planet that's facing some very powerful challenges, we are in the process of needing to make some radical change if we're going to create a world of equitable, sustainable peace, which is where we're headed, and we're going to get there one way or the other. We do have a choice in how we're going to get there. We're either going to get there cataclysmically and maybe in a white-knuckling kind of scary way, or we can get there with a deep template of what's possible set in place that will guide and steer the transformation in a deliberate and conscious way. And that transformation can go from being cataclysmic to being very conscious and very powerful and very rapid, and can result for us, I believe, in exponential growth of the frequency of love and sufficiency on the planet. We have a choice, though, of how we're going to steer it. And if we're going to steer it in our personal lives and ultimately in our collective lives in a direction that's really going to serve us building a beautiful world that will be compelling enough for everyone to want to step into, for everyone to be willing to surrender their consciousness of lack and step into a consciousness of sufficiency and trust and co-creation. If we are going to create that, then we have to ourselves right now, especially starting now until the end of 2019, we need to have cycles and patterns of consistency in our own personal practices and even in our collective practices that anchor us in our power, our creative power, that anchor us in the energy of faith and the willingness to trust that even if we don't know how we're going to create what we want to create, we trust enough in the unfolding of the cosmic plan that we know the answers will come. And we act as if the answers are on their way instead of going into the closet and freaking out. 2019 is calling us out in a really new way, because the energy of 2019 increases the speed at which we manifest in the material world. If your thoughts create your reality or thoughts become things, next year that will go up tenfold. And the importance of us being in charge and being practiced in our creative capacity is huge for next year. And for us to be in that place of empowered creativity, we have to be practiced in using our creative skills. If you've ever seen the old Mickey Mouse cartoon where he's a sorcerer's apprentice and he's trying to figure out how to enchant a broom and enchant water, and he's learning to use his newly minted sorceress skills, you'll know that we are kind of in that same place right now. We know we're creative. We've discovered the meaning of your thoughts create your reality. We understand enough of the quantum mechanics of creativity to know what we need to be doing to create. But knowing what you need to do versus actually doing are two distinctly different things. And 2019 is pedal to the metal year. We don't have a lot of wiggle room next year in figuring out the patterns and habits necessary to keep us grounded in consistency so that we have a touch point, a baseline to reconnect with as we go through this cycle of quantum expansion. We need both consistency and extremes to change. We need the 2 steps forward, and we need the 1 step back, and we need the platform upon which to grow. We need those cycles of consistency, that practice. And you are being invited by the planets right now to explore what kind of practice do you have in place. What are you doing right now to connect yourself back to the truth of who you are? What are you doing right now to anchor faith? How do you create when you can't see how to create what you want to create? These are the questions we're invited to explore in the next couple of weeks, or even over the course of the next year. And I really want you to tap into the understanding that your power, your creative power, goes up exponentially when you're creating in alignment with your authentic self. We've been talking a lot in the last few weeks and looking at in our collective archetypes, the energy of power or the archetype of power. And what does it mean to be powerful? I want you to understand that you are all inherently powerful. In fact, we are so powerful that we have 2 distinctly developmental phases that we go through as children to teach us about power, both when we're 2 and when we're teenagers. We're designed to go through developmental phases that help us learn about our power. Power is not about force. In fact, when you look at the human design chart, there's nowhere in the chart where you seize power. Power is entirely responsive. It dances with the outer reality. And from our dance with the outer reality, we express our power in response to what the universe or the world shows us. Power and the increase of your power and access to your power is amplified when you live true to your authentic self. And when you create what you really want in your life. When we see somebody and we perceive them as being powerful, it's not because they have guns or because they are standing with brute force over us. That's a very mistaken notion of power. That's actually overcompensating for powerlessness. True power, when we sense somebody who's truly powerful, what we sense is that this is a person who is willing to act on what they want. And this is a person who is willing to be aligned with who they are. And we feel that as freedom. And that freedom is our power. You will feel most free and most powerful when you are living a life that you have created in alignment with what you genuinely want and what is true to the heart of who you really are. That's the possibility of what's available to us. And the possibility for us to be able to create that, not from a place of fear or a place of lack or a place of contrast, but to create that from a place of conscious, deliberate harnessing of the power of our minds, our emotions, and our hearts with clear, conscious deliberation is available to us. It's a skill set. It's really the true source of magic, if you will. And we will be able to become masterful over the magic of our creative selves when we practice and strengthen our ability to use our power, our alignment with ourselves and our faith to craft, even if we don't see the possibility yet of how it's going to happen, in the language that we use, in the stories that we tell, in the possibilities we entertain, in the meanings we hold, a vision of an equitable, sustainable world of peace. That's what's up for us in the next couple of years. That's what's up for you in your life right now, the possibility of you living from a place of enoughness. And that's what's up for us in the next couple of weeks as we look at what habits do we have that support the evolution of that way of being in the world. So, big heavy stuff this week. Explore your patterns and habits. How often are you going to the gym? How often are you connecting with Source? How willing are you to continue to practice asking for what you really want and what you really need? And how practiced are you at creating from a place of sufficiency and, dare I say, even abundance? Those are the questions I invite you to explore this week. Have a great week. I will talk to you next week.